Okay, Master. Hare Krishna. Nice to be here again this Saturday. Today we will cover the 10th chapter of the first canto, Departure of Lord Krishna for Dwarka, chapter 10. So in the last chapter, we heard how Bhishma Dev had just left the world and all the devotees were having mixed feelings of happiness and but intense misery due to separation. Because he was released from this difficult situation of being on a bed of arrows, the devotees felt pleasure for him, also knowing that he went back to Godhead. But for themselves, they felt separation from him. So we see that how a major theme in this chapter is going to be how the devotees feel separation from Krishna. And it just begins with Bhishma Dev leaving the world and how devotees are feeling in separation of Bhishma Dev, and how Bhishma Dev also left in the mood of intense separation from the Lord. So when these great souls, they traverse the earth, it brings meaning to our life. Otherwise, it's just matter interacting with matter. Why? Because these holy people, they carry energy, internal energy of the Lord, giving life to the hearts that are made out of stone. So after the funeral ceremony was performed for all the departed souls during the war of Kurukshetra, Shaunak Rishi asked Suta Goswami, what happened after Yudhishthira took over the kingdom? So he wanted to know more, that, okay, now what happens? He was not a type of king who simply rules to exploit the people for his own selfish reason, something that's meant for his pleasure. But he was not a personification of irreligion, taking falsely the position of a king. So I'm going to read text 1 to invoke auspiciousness, and then we're going to read a couple verses, and we'll go into the explanation. Shonavaka uvacha hatva swarikta spridha atatta yino yudhishtaro dharma bhritam varishtha sahanuje pratya arudha bhojana katham pravarta kim akarashit tataha. Shonika Muni asked, after killing his enemies who desired to usurp his rightful inheritance, how did the greatest of all religious men, Maharaj Yudhishthir, assisted by his brothers, rule his subjects? Surely he could not freely enjoy his kingdom with unrestricted consciousness. Suta Goswami said, Lord Shri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the maintainer of the world, became pleased after re-establishing Maharaj Yudhishthir in his own kingdom and after restoring the Kuru dynasty, which had been exhausted by the bamboo fire of anger. So Prabhupada writes in the purport how Yudhishthir Maharaj, how Krishna placed Yudhishthir Maharaj as king because he was goodness personified, religion personified. And he wanted such a person to rule because the citizens are benefited so much. The whole purpose of this material creation is to get us all back to Godhead. So Krishna is always very careful to see that there is virtue in the material world. It happens, and when the king is good, then the citizens naturally follow. Actually, the fact of the matter is that people, citizens of any country, they want good heroes. Otherwise, they also become degraded. And if a good hero is there as a leader, then he's naturally respected. Otherwise, people, as we see today in today's world, how people find less qualified people to worship. Unfortunately, people are worshiping rock stars, sports stars, movie heroes, and so people are really aching for good exemplary leaders. And here we see in the Bhagavatam how these were very, very exemplary leaders. King Krishna, he actually wanted the Kuru dynasty to rule because they were all virtuous. The Pandavas were very virtuous. And it's mentioned how this dynasty was exhausted due to friction between the two cousins, right? And is compared to the friction of bamboos in a forest fire. Um, so in this slide, in our first slide, we're going to talk about uh, Yudhishthira Maharaj's exemplary rule, how he ruled. Because this was, remember, this was Shaunaka Rishi's question to Sutta Goswami. What happened next? How did Yudhishthira Maharaj rule his kingdom? So in verses 3 to 6, Sutta Goswami explains the nature of his rule, nature of his rulership. Maharaj Yudhishthir, after being enlightened by what was spoken by Bhishma Dev and Lord Sri Krishna, the infallible, engaged himself in matters of perfect knowledge because all his misgivings were eradicated. Thus he ruled over the earth and seas and was followed by his younger brothers. So the purports in these following verses are very, very powerful, and they're worth noting. So in this purport, Prabhupada explains how it is the person whose ruling is more important, not the impersonal government. So he's saying that how if the person is perfect, the government is perfect. If the person is a fool, the government is a fool. It's not the system, it is the person who makes it work. That is why Prabhupada emphasizes that is that we must elect perfect personalities at the helm. What is required is the training, not to change the system. Actually, it is much easier to change the system than to find perfect people, isn't it? We see how people get dissatisfied. They go from one political party to another political party. But what's really is not the agenda. In the what's needed is the people, trained people. So really, Yudhishthira Maharaj, Prabhupada writes in the purport how he never had his own ideology. You know how people have their own isms, but he had none. The one ideology that he followed was the ideology, the instructions given by the Lord Himself and His pure devotees, and this is what he followed, and that's why he became such a great king. So this is what's required. So in text 4 to 6, it describes the nature of how the kingdom of Maharaj Yudhishthira was like, how it was very prosperous, and there was so much that everybody needed. So I'll read a couple verses. During the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthira, the clouds showered all the water that people needed, and the earth produced all the necessities of man in profusion. Due to his fatty milk bags and cheerful attitude, the cow used to moisten the grazing ground with milk. The rivers, oceans, hills, mountains, forests, creepers, and active drugs in every season paid their tax quota to the king in profusion. Because of the king having no enemy, the living beings were not in any time disturbed by mental agonies, diseases, or excessive heat or cold. And in this purport, in purport 6, Prabhupada really speaks very strongly about the potency of a spiritually based government contrasted with materialistic government in our next slide. So that's a very interesting point, and this is a nice point to be discussed with our children, because they have some sense of what's going on in the world, and how people, what are some of the things that are happening, especially if they're reading Bhagavatam, they get a good picture of today's world as well. This is the beauty of Srila Prabhupada's purports. He brings it according to time, place, and circumstance. And whatever he speaks about the current situation is so accurate, we'll notice when we read his purports. So in order to explain what the difference between Vedic government versus modern government, I'm going to read a section of the purport, which kind of pretty much sums up the differences between the two. So Srila Prabhupada writes, when the Lord is obeyed by the king and the people under the king's administration, there are regulated rains from the horizon, and these are the causes of varieties of production on the land. Not only do regulated rains help ample production of grains and fruits, but when they combine with astronomical influences, there's ample production of valuable stones and pearls. Grains and vegetables can sumptuously feed a man and animals, and a fatty cow delivers enough milk to supply a man sumptuously with vigor and vitality. If there's enough milk, enough grains, enough fruit, enough cotton, enough silk, and enough jewels, then why do the people need cinemas and houses of prostitution, slaughterhouses, etc.? What is the need of an artificial, luxurious life of cinema, cars, radio, flesh, and hotels? Has this civilization produced anything but quarreling individually and nationally? Has this civilization enhanced the cause of equality and fraternity by sending thousands of men into a hellish factory and the war fields at the whims of a particular man? It is said that the cows used to moisten the pasturing land with milk because their milk bags were fatty and the animals were joyful. Do they not require, therefore, proper protection for a joyful life, being fed with sufficient quantity of grass in the field? Why should men kill cows for their selfish purposes? Why should man not be satisfied with grains, fruits, and milk, which combined together can produce hundreds and thousands of palatable dishes? Why are there slaughterhouses all over the world to kill innocent animals? Should not a king or executive head protect the lives of the poor animals who are unable to defend themselves? Is this humanity? Are not the animals of a country's citizens also? Then why are they allowed to be butchered in organized slaughterhouses? Are these the signs of equality, fraternity, and nonviolence? Therefore, in contrast with the modern, advanced, civilized form of government, an autocracy like Maharaj Yudhishthira's is by far superior to a so-called democracy in which animals are killed and a man less than animal is allowed to cast votes for another less than animal man. So as you can see, Prabhupada was very, very strong on this purport of how we, deal with with living entities who are lesser than humans, who actually need a protection. So Prabhupada explains how hard-hearted a person has to be in order to kill innocent animals, right? Anything defenseless, even small children, in the womb. He also criticizes that, because these are defenseless living entities. What to speak of murderers and and things like that, homicide and all that. So now Yudhishthira Maharaj is all set. He's ruling a very prosperous kingdom. He's a very enlightened king. And Krishna prepares to leave Hastinapur. So in our next slide, we will talk about a totally different subject matter here, how the scene totally changes here, and how the residents of Hastinapur feel separation as Krishna leaves. Okay, so I'm going to read a few verses and then explain a little bit, expand. At that time, that's text 9, verses 9 to 14. At that time, Subhadra, Draupadi, Kunti, Uttara, Gandhari, Dhritarashtra, Yuyusu, Kripacharya, Nakul, Sadev, Bhimasen, Dhaumya, and Satyavati all nearly fainted because it was impossible for them to bear separation from Lord Krishna. Now in text 11 and 12, he's going to talk about the Pandavas' separation from Krishna. The intelligent who have understood the Supreme Lord in association with pure devotees and have become freed from bad materialistic association can never avoid hearing the glories of the Lord, even though they have heard them only once. How then could the Pandavas tolerate his separation? For they have been intimately associated with this person, seeing him face to face, touching him, conversing with him, and sleeping, sitting, and dining with him. So he's saying that when we get so attached, when we hear about Krishna, when we hear Krishna Katha, we want to hear more. So what to speak of the Pandava separation, who were intimately related with Krishna and doing very, very personal things with him, as I just read. As their hearts were melting for him on the part of attraction, all their hearts were melting for him on the part of attraction. They looked at him without blinking their eyes, and they moved hither and thither in perplexity. The female relatives, whose eyes were flooded with tears out of anxiety for Krishna, came out of their palace. They could not stop their tears. They could only stop their tears with great difficulty. They feared that tears would cause misfortune at the time of departure. So they're all feeling separation from Krishna. And there's many other nice examples, as you can see in this slide, about how Mother Earth, she feels separation from Krishna. Because Krishna, when he's on this planet, he's walking on Mother Earth. And in Vrindavan, especially, he doesn't even wear slippers. So the marks on his lotus feet, the footprints, Mother Earth gets to bear these footprints of Krishna. So therefore, she feels great separation when Krishna leaves. So she's also feeling separation when Krishna is leaving Hastinapur. And we see how the Pandavas, especially, is stressed here, their agony in seeing Krishna leave. And I particularly remember that, later chapter 14, is, I think, Krishna's departure from Hastinapur, from Dwarka, when he's going back to the spiritual world. Then Yudhishthira Maharaj, he sees bad omens in the sky and elsewhere. And he sends Arjuna to Dwarka to find out the next plan of the Lord, because he had a fear that Krishna is leaving, and that's why these bad omens are there. And so when Arjuna comes back and he's in a real state of despondency because Krishna has left, then Yudhishthira Maharaj is asking so many questions from Arjuna because of this intensity of separation from him. So the point is that we cannot actually miss anyone unless we had enough association with that person. So if devotees have had sufficient association with Krishna, so naturally they will miss them. So the whole purpose of our life is to feel this separation from Krishna. And how do we feel the separation from Krishna? By chanting his holy name, by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, and by seeing his deity form. So to the extent that we love Krishna, we will feel separation from him. Right? So we know the example of the gopis who felt so much separation from Krishna, so much so that even an eye blink was a problem, where they felt an eye blink was equivalent to millions of years of separation from Krishna. Krishna may be standing in front of them, yet if the eye blinks, they would feel separation. So Prabhupada explains how everyone is suffering not due to money, lack of money, or beauty, or position, or material things. The only reason for suffering is separation from Krishna. So the conditioned soul separation from Krishna brings misery, but a pure devotee separation from Krishna is actually blissful, loving, joyful, nourishing. So the process of bhakti and that we are trying to do is to convert this happiness that we experience from material things to the happiness that we derive from serving Krishna. And of course, the greatest example is the love of Radharani for Krishna. And I remember, when I was doing Braj Mandal one time, that there's a beautiful place called Prem Sarovar. And the pastime here is that once, it's a really nice pastime, an amusing one, where Radha and Krishna were sitting together on a swing, and a bee was bothering Radharani. And so Krishna asked his friend Madhumangal to make the bee fly away. because he was bothering Radharani. So Madhu Mangal chased the bee away and came to tell Krishna how he had chased Madhu away. Madhu is is another name for a bee, but it's also the name of Krishna. So as soon as Radharani hears that Madhu had gone away, she starts crying to an extent we can not understand. So Krishna asked Radharani, "Why are you crying so much? I'm here." But Radharani, she continued to cry. When Krishna saw that, he also started crying, and both of their crying made them prema sarovar. So this is, highest love, that can be found. And it's this feeling of separation, even when they're together. Right? So this is something that only the gopis and Radharani can exemplify. So we heard in text verses 11-12 about Pandava's separation from Krishna, how Pandavas had very loving exchanges with Krishna, and how they could not tolerate any separation from him, even though they had so much. It said that how they had so many wonderful qualities, dharmic qualities, right? And also they were so powerful. Bhima was such a powerful personality. He had a powerful club, and his power was equivalent to 10,000 elephants. Right? He was able to kill all the 100 Kauravas. All the 100 Kauravas. It is said that when he would hit the first elephant, the 10,000th elephant would also fall down. So you can imagine what would happen to the first elephant, right? Arjuna was famous for his Gandiva bow, and he was so powerful that he mesmerized even Lord Shiva. So all of these Pandavas had such great opulences, but their biggest opulence was their friendship with Krishna, and this is what they understood. So even though they were situated in all their glories eventually as kings of the Hastinapur, yet their separation was Krishna was enough for them to just leave home. When Yudhishthira Maharaj heard from Arjuna in the 14th chapter, and then leading on to 15th chapter, how Krishna had left, Yudhishthira Maharaj did not even think for even a minute. He gives up his kingly robes and he leaves. For him, that all this kingdom, all this opulence, all this wonderful glory was nothing. And so you can see the caliber of the devotees like Pandavas. So we are hearing about how these people of Hastinapur, they're missing Krishna. And Krishna is also relishing that separation. How Krishna says that actually, I don't even live in Vaikuntha. I stay in a place where he's glorified by his devotees. So these ladies their hearts are melting on the part of affection for Krishna, and they are following Krishna with their eyes. Their hearts are full with, love for Krishna. Naturally, Krishna is all attractive. Prabhupada says how he's the chief eternal of all eternals. Okay? So we see how Srimad Bhagavatam trains us by submissive hearing. It trains us to gradually come to this platform where we actually can feel natural love for Krishna. So these ladies are having great difficulty in trying to stop their tears. Why are they trying to stop their tears? Because they were very anxious for the safety of Krishna. And they were afraid that it may cause inauspiciousness for Krishna. So now in the next slide, we're going to hear how they offer prayers laden with love. So these are verses from 21 to 25. And first, they glorify Krishna as the supreme creator and destroyer. They said, text 21, they said, "Here he is, the original personality of Godhead, as we definitely remember him. He alone existed before the manifested creation of the modes of nature, and in him only, because he is the Supreme Lord, all living beings merge, as if sleeping at night, their energy is suspended." So they're saying that how before creation, only the Lord existed. Brahma was not there. And how from one seed, Prabhupada explains how from one seed of the banyan tree, so many trees are coming. In the same way, so many universes are coming from Mahavishnu. So every and from in each universe, there's Brahma, who takes birth. So every universe has a Brahma. So many universes are coming out from Mahavishnu. So there's so many Mahatattvas, so many false egos, so many material elements, and so many living entities. All these are coming out from the pores of Mahavishnu. And this Mahavishnu, he is a plenary portion of Krishna. So this way they glorify the Lord as saying that how Krishna existed even before all this creation happened. Now, the second aspect of this verse talks about how everything merges into Krishna. So there's two types of inhalation, Prabhupada explains, one at the end of Brahma's day and one at the end of Brahma's life. But in both occasions, all the living entities merge into Mahavishnu, into Vishnu. So at the end of Brahma's day, they would merge into Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and at the end of his life, they merge into the body of Mahavishnu. So, of course, this merging does not mean that one's losing one's identity, just like a computer, when it goes into hibernate mode, it's not extinguished, it just goes into sleep mode, right? So similarly, we are never extinguished. We just get into the sleep mode during the night of Brahma or the life of Brahma. So the point being that how a life is very flickering, is very, very tiny. Even the life of Brahma is so tiny because he exists only for one breathing period of Vishnu. Just think. Right? Now in text 22, they say how the personality of Godhead, again desiring to give names and forms to his parts and parcels, the living entities, placed them under the guidance of material nature. By his own potency, material nature is empowered to recreate. So what is saying here is that how the Lord, he gives a chance to the conditioned souls to fulfill their desires and also to reform. So he gives us, material names, material forms, but he also gives us these scriptures, especially Srimad Bhagavatam, so we can reform ourselves. Why is he giving us all material names and material forms? So that we can fulfill our desires. But in the process, of course, the nature of this material world is that it will frustrate us. Right? So he gives us the scriptures. So Prabhupada explains in the purport how the conditioned souls are busy making plans. And they're plan makers and their plans, but they're all going to be annihilated. The plan makers as well as the plans. So in our next slide, we hear how the ladies are glorifying Dwarka and Mathura and their residents. Text 26 and 27. Oh, how supremely glorified is the dynasty of King Yadu, and how virtuous is the land of Mathura, where the supreme leader of all living beings, the husband of the goddess of fortune, has taken his birth and wandered in his childhood. So when they're talking about the wandered in his childhood, it means Vrindavan. So Mathura includes Vrindavan here. Undoubtedly, it is wonderful that Dwarka has defeated the glories of the heavenly planets and had enhanced the celebrity of the earth. The inhabitants of Dwarka are always seeing the soul of all living beings, Krishna, in his loving feature. He glances at them and favors them with sweet smiles. So nicely they're glorifying the Lord. First, how he creates and destroys, and how he descends. And so Krishna is descending here, Prabhupada explains, to attract our hearts to him, right? And he also responds to the fact that when there's too much irreligion, then he comes to establish religion. And we hear that in the 10th canto, or in Krishna book, the first chapter, how Bhumi went to Lord Brahma and she prayed for the Lord's descent because she needed relief from all the demoniac tendencies. Right? And then they glorified Dwarka and Dwarkavasis, and how glorified they are, because and Mathura, of course, because he's taken birth there and he's been wandering in the forests since childhood there. Now, in the next slide, we're going to talk about just a small analogy that's given here about Krishna's appearance and disappearance comparing to a sun. And this is I thought, a nice analogy to discuss with our children. Of course, because it's very simple and easy to understand. I'll read a little bit of the purport. The Lord appears in a particular family or place by his inconceivable potency. Right? So in other words, he doesn't take birth as a conditioned soul. Yeah, in other words, he's not taking birth and accepting another body. And he's compared, and Prabhupada compares his birth to the appearance and disappearance of the sun. The sun arises on the eastern horizon, but does that not mean that but that does not mean that the eastern horizon is the parent of the sun. The sun is existent in every part of the solar system, but he becomes visible at a scheduled time, and so also becomes invisible at another scheduled time. Similarly, the Lord appears in this universe like the sun and again leaves our sight at another time. So we can explain it like that. In a last slide, we're going to talk about how a deeper point, which can be discussed with the older children, that kind of, explains again this theme of separation, how Krishna intensifies separation in his pure devotees. And we can do that with nice examples here, which becomes very interesting for our children. Right? So, and one point that can be understood here is that how just by being with Krishna physically, does not mean that one is a higher devotee versus somebody who's separated from Krishna. In fact, it's the other way around. And we'll see here in some of these examples how the higher the stage of separation, the higher the devotee is. In fact, a devotee's love for Krishna can be tested by how much Krishna, arranges to be separated from him. So one example is how Krishna was in the coils of Kaliya, how all the residents of Vrindavan were in a total state of anxiety. The gopis, the younger and older ones, the parents of Krishna, cows, they were all watching Krishna in the coils, full of anxiety, and still Krishna was not coming out of the coils. And he actually said he stayed there for a long time, a whole muhurta. Why did he do that? Right? And it's because the residents during this time were experiencing intense emotion and love for Krishna. And Krishna was tasting this, and that is why he was not releasing himself. So when it reached its peak, then Krishna was thinking that if I don't release myself now, they will die. So then he released himself from the coils, he subdued Kaliya and sent him off. And when Krishna came out, all the Sakhas embraced him, Mother Yashoda and Nand Maharaj embraced him. All could embrace Krishna except the younger gopis due to culture. But their hearts were running towards Krishna. And it said that because the gopis were the highest devotees, they were given the highest opportunity to feel separation from Krishna. So it said that in Vrindavan, the maximum association of Krishna was not given to the gopis. Yashoda got a lot of association, the Sakhas got, young gopis, they also got during the rasa dance, but most of the time they were in separation, suffering in separation. And so therefore they're considered the highest devotees. So this can be understood in reference to text 30, where it's mentioned how the queens were always with Krishna, all the time. So does that mean the queens of Dwarka were higher than the gopis? No. They were obviously very, very exalted, because in Golok, there's 3 sections. There's, Gokul, there's Dwarka, and there's Mathura. So these are equally there. However, the gopis of Vrindavan are considered the highest devotees, right? Especially Radharani. So now we have also other examples, as you can see in the slide. We have an example of Devaki, how she was separated from Krishna for 10 years. Right? Yashoda, she got an association of Krishna for 10 years, but she was in separation from Krishna for the rest of her life. So Yashoda is considered superior to Dwarkavasis. Right? So also example is given of Ram and Sita, how, there's not much is given when they were together, description is not much description is given when they were together in the forest, but so much narration is given when Sita was separated from Ram, when she was kidnapped by Ravan, and the separation of Sita from Ram and Ram from Sita is very much highlighted. So we can see by this how we can understand the mood of these devotees and the mood of the Pandavas, the mood of the ladies of Hastinapur, and get also understanding of the mood of residents of Vrindavan. So after this, the remaining verses in this chapter, they talk about Krishna accepting the prayers. He accepts it. He smiles at them, the prayers of the residents of Hastinapur, and how, and now he's embarking on his journey, and how Maharaj Yudhishthira, out of intense love for him, and he arranges for 4 divisions of defense to go with Krishna. And the Pandavas, they follow Krishna for some distance, unwilling to return to Hastinapur. And Krishna has to persuade them to go back. So I'll read a few verses and then we'll end. So text 31. While the ladies of the capital Hastinapur were greeting him and talking in this way, the Lord, smiling, accepted their good greetings, and casting the grace of his glance over them, he departed from the city. Maharaj Yudhishthira, although no one's enemy, engaged 4 divisions of defense, horse, elephant, chariot, and army, to accompany Lord Krishna, the enemy of the Asuras, demons. The Maharaj did this because of the enemy, but also out of affection for the Lord. Out of profound affection for Lord Krishna, the Pandavas, who were of the Kuru dynasty, accompanied him at a considerable distance to see him off. They were overwhelmed with the thought of future separation. The Lord, however, persuaded them to return home, and he proceeded towards Dwarka with his dear companions. O Shonika! The Lord then proceeded towards Kuranjala, Panchala, Surasena, the land on the bank of the river Yamuna, Brahmavarta, Kurukshetra, Matsya, Sarasvata, the province of the desert and the land of scanty water. After crossing these provinces, he gradually reached the Sovira and Abhira provinces, then west of this reached Dwarka at last. On his journey through these provinces, he was welcomed, worshipped, and given various presentations. In the evening, in all places, the Lord suspended his journey to perform evening rites. This was regularly observed after sunset. So there will be nice activity in our guidebook for Krishna's travels and and the different places in India where Krishna went, which is a very nice activity, as well as many other activities, which now Shri Radhika Mataji will explain.
Sorry. Just a few minutes. Is there an echo, Mataji, you can hear when I talk?
Very little. It's very slight.
For some reason, there's an echo today. I was trying
to... a little bit. Yeah, it does come a little bit.
Is it any better now?
Yeah, I think it's better.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let me just start my presentation. All right. Okay. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you so much for participating week after week. So after that beautiful, it's not a summary, it's a detailed presentation on chapter 10. We're ready to move on to the activities from the guidebook. So hopefully we've read the translation with the children, and we'll move on to some very, very comprehensive and fun activities that are given in the guidebook for this chapter. But before we do that, I wanted to show some amazing pictures from Shyama Rukmini Mataji, who lives in Iowa. And she has 2 children, Balaram and Subhadra, and she's shared pictures of them, as well as two other children that they read Bhagavatam with every Friday, working on activities from this book. So in the second chapter, there's a activity in the guidebook that talks about Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan realization, and helping the child illustrate these concepts. And the chapter gives some words and boxes that you sort out according to which realization it is. So here's Balaram working on that. And there's also an activity on clean and dirty heart. And really love how the children have illustrated this, that when we chant, then our heart becomes nice and clean. And when the self is at the center, instead of Krishna at the center of the heart, then the heart looks pretty dirty. Although I really like how creative these children are, and look at how beautiful those hearts look. But we understand that the heart has greed, selfish, mean, angry, jealous. I see all these words written here. So it's really wonderful how these four children are studying the book together. So please keep sharing your pictures with us. And let's move on to chapter 10. Chapter begins with a story summary. Yudhishthira Maharaj was now back in his kingdom, ruling the world. He ruled his kingdom only to please Lord Krishna and his late grandfather Bhishma. He still felt so guilty that he had killed so many of his friends and relatives to become the king. Thus, he really didn't feel he was the best person to rule the world. Nevertheless, he continued to rule because he desired to do whatever Lord Krishna wanted him to do. So very nice, beautiful summary, nicely written, and a lot of dialogue, so it's easy for the child to understand, followed by key messages that are grouped according to verses and themes. And there's an encouragement to look up these messages and put them in one's own word, discuss them further, and apply them. There are multiple choice questions, as well as some questions that require an essay response. To understand the story better, Yudhishthira Maharaj didn't feel he should be ruling as king, but why did he continue to rule? A, B, C, and it's a nice way to discuss the chapter with the child. Followed by higher thinking questions that help to delve deeper into Srila Prabhupada's purpose, reflecting upon these questions can be done verbally with younger children, or can be given as a writing assignment to the child that is older. And electronically or writing by hand. Just wanted to share some very thoughtful questions here. It is described that Maharaj Yudhishthira was the enemy of no one. However, he fought in the battle of Kurukshetra. So, is this a contradiction? It's a really, really thoughtful question here. And the talks of the residents of Hastinapur are more attractive than the hymns of the Vedas. How is that? Is that an exaggeration? And describe the living conditions when Yudhishthira Maharaj ruled the world. So contrast them with the current conditions. And I'm really sorry about the noise. I have 3 other boys besides my 2 in the house. They're having a sleepover this weekend. So it's going to be noisy. And then there are some wonderful activities given in the book. So it starts with duties. Yudhishthira Maharaj was made king by Krishna after the battle of Kurukshetra, but he did not try to enjoy the kingdom for himself. Instead, he ruled the kingdom as a matter of duty. So let's try to follow in the footsteps of Yudhishthira Maharaj by developing a sense of duty consciousness. Think of some of the duties you can perform around the house. Services such as cleaning the altar, helping with putting away the laundry or the dishes, and write down 3 duties that you will do without fail for a week. Encouragement to prepare a Sunday feast class on the topic of spiritual affection and family attachment with Krishna in the center, using the examples that are given in this chapter. And then some pointers are given. So the author is meant to persuade, inform, and entertain an audience. And a good speech structure involves opening with a punchline, proceeding to the main idea, and then taking 3 most important points and discussing them very systematically, and concluding with a summary of your main ideas and a punchline. So we've generally just done these informally at home, never really, had the children actually present a class to an audience. But we've prepared this at home and shared with each other. An analogy activity to help understand the analogies that are given in this chapter. So in the purport to verse 2, Prabhupada says, this world is compared to a forest fire caused by the cohesion, maybe collision of bamboo bushes. Such a forest fire takes place automatically, for bamboo collision occurs without external cause. Similarly, in the material world, the wrath of those who want to lord it over material nature interacts, and the fire of war takes place, exhausting the unwanted population. And Krishna has nothing to do with this. These fires just take place on their own, like forest fires. So there's some very nice prompting questions. What makes you angry? How do you feel when you're angry? How do we often blame others when we feel angry? Do we pray to Krishna? And then, so basically this is around the topic of what do you do? Another word for wrath is anger. And also creating an acrostic poem with the word anger. So writing down A-N-G-E-R and then coming up with words to describe each letter. And then also a conclusion to discuss at the end regarding anger. And sometimes when we want too many things, we don't get them, we become angry. We find, can we try to find nice ways of expressing anger? I think this is nice even as an adult, for myself. Here's an artistic activity, natural wealth of the land. There's just beautiful description of when Yudhishthira Maharaj was a king, the bounty, the natural bounty of the land is so beautifully described. And here's a picture for children to color the natural bounty that could be found during that time. Also designing a farewell card. So Krishna is leaving the city, so make a farewell card and a gift that you can give to Krishna before he departs. This one is one that I have pictures of from Vaishnava Academy, the homeschool co-op that we are part of, making a fan, because there's a description of how Uddhava and Satyaki began to fan the Lord with decorated fans. And the Lord commanded them along the road. So there's a whole description of how a fan can be designed. And we did this at Vaishnava Academy, and I actually don't have pictures of the final product, unfortunately. We decorated the fans too. What happened is I had to mediate a conflict between two students, and I lost my focus and didn't actually take pictures of the final product. It just happened this past Wednesday. Boys can sometimes get physical with each other. Okay. So the next activity is understanding the geography of how Krishna spent his time on the earth. So there's a map given in resource 2, and using that map, the student can plot out the places of Lord Krishna's pastimes during his time on earth. And there are also flags provided to attach to the map, or one can draw one's own pictures to show what Krishna did at each place. So we printed the map or copied the map on a piece of paper. We copied the flags and we cut them out and we pasted them. And also in resource 4, there's a table where the student can note down details about what Krishna did in each place, who he was with, what was his reason for living there. And also this activity can be extended outdoors or in a large indoor area where adults can help to plot out maps, and the relevant places can be plotted using the smaller map and then creating paths between the different places that Krishna traveled. So here's resource 2, which gives the map, and all those places are nicely labeled. And here's resource 3 that has maps. And you notice on each of these maps, what Krishna did at that particular place is very beautifully illustrated. So Ujjain, he's with Sandipani Muni, and in Vrindavan with Balaram and the cows, and in Kurukshetra blowing the conch for the battle. And in Mathura, little baby Krishna with Mother Yashoda, and so on. So we printed the map, and the children really enjoyed this one, when they can work with their hands and physically paste, and we discussed the pictures and what Krishna did at each place, and this was our final product. We used hot glue, and it would have been really nice if we had printed the map on cardstock paper. I did it on regular paper, so the maps are not standing erect, but they got the point. And here's resource 4, where in each of these places, now, what did Krishna do there? Who was Krishna with? And why did he leave that particular place? All right, introspective activities, evening prayers. In the evening after sunset, says verse 36, in all the places he went, he would stop to perform evening prayers. Although the Lord didn't need to do this, he did it so that others would follow him. So choose some prayers following Krishna's example and sing them in the evening at home with your family. Another writing activity, imagine that you are King Yudhishthira. Write a diary entry to describe how you're feeling about seeing the Lord leave. So really beautiful, grammar, writing, all our English language arts can be covered so beautifully using the activities in this book. Artistic abilities, so fine arts can be covered so nicely. So geography covers social studies, and then science in terms of understanding how the natural bounty flourishes when Krishna's feet are on the earth, or when Krishna's at the center, and studying science from that perspective of how it is a miracle of Krishna, all the systems and processes that he's put in place. Here's one that has, it's based on the story summary, and there are a few resources to do this particular activity. It's a sequencing task for the children to recall events from the pastime of Krishna leaving for Dwaraka and place the events in chronological order. So there are 2 versions given. For younger children, read each event in order and then ask the child to match the event to the picture. But for older children, they can not only match, but they can also put the events in order and using the story summary, or knowing, or based on their understanding of the chapter after the translations have been read with them. And then in resource 7, creating a mini dictionary of the words in this lesson. So let's look at resource 5. These are the pictures, and they can be photocopied on just a regular piece of paper, and then cut these out. And then resource 6 can also be photocopied and cut these out and jumble everything up, and then let the child match the picture to the description and then place in chronological order. So for instance, after Lord Krishna asked Yudhishthira for permission to leave, the Lord's relatives gasped in shock. So that seems to point to this picture. Then Krishna sat on the seat of his chariot, which was decorated with scattered flowers. So here's Krishna, for a change, sitting on a chariot instead of driving it. And we did this one, and the children enjoyed finding which description matches which picture, and then they put it in chronological order too. Resource 7 is write a description of each object, how it's used, what it looks like, sounds like, feels like. And again, this is really good, English language art, as well as very devotional, because these items are used in Krishna's worship, or they're mentioned in this chapter. Keywords, going to a dictionary and finding what embrace means, and what affection means, and what permission means. And then either orally or in written form, constructing a sentence using that word in the sentence. A word search, which is always fun for children. And a beautiful poem, Prayers of the Ladies of Hastinapur. The ladies of Hastinapur went onto the rooftops to see Krishna as he left that day in a great parade for his home in Dwaraka, far away. Imagine the emotion of these ladies that are pure devotees. Flower petals they threw on their Krishna, dark blue, and they smiled and they prayed and how they wished he could stay. But to Dwaraka he went, so much time he had spent away from his family who wanted him back. And now the mood changes, because now he's entering Dwaraka. Krishna greets his wife with his sweet lotus smile, and sons such as Pradyumna and Samba. How blessed they all are in Dwaraka with Krishna, headed by his queens Rukmini and Satyabhama. Of his glorious acts, all the ladies thought back. He was bound by his mother when she caught him stealing butter. He's the super soul in the heart of us all, and he gives a special mercy to all those faithful. The ladies could see Krishna smiling so sweet as they offered their prayers unto his lotus feet. He accepted their love from the rooftops above. Then away he left for Dwaraka, their Lord Madhava. Oh, I'm sorry. So it seems that's for Dwaraka, the Lord Madhava. Yeah, so that was entrance into Dwaraka.
Mm-hmm.
And away he left for Dwaraka. I'm a little puzzled by that last statement, sorry. And answers at the end for the activities that have a specific answer. Many of them are, of course, up to the discretion of the child, or have multiple possible answers or potential answers. And the books can be obtained via Amazon in US or UK and Golden Age Media. And I haven't heard too many things lately. In the beginning, when we started this, I was hearing a lot about, getting the books, and it seems like now in India they're being readily available because I'm not getting a lot of questions. So, alrighty, that was my part. I'm going to now allow participants to unmute themselves. And this is time for questions, discussion, sharing, comments. So please engage us. Okay, Shamarupini, Mataji, so nice to have you join us. Thank you for your wonderful work in Iowa and sharing your pictures. I actually forgot the name of the two girls, Aina, and it was with A, both the girls.
Agrima and Ahana.
Agrima and Ahana. My apologies.
No, thank you, Mataji. Thank you for sharing and encouraging, all the time. So, Mataji, I had a question, Aruda Mataji. Like in the text 9 and 10, we see that, they have given Subhadra and all, who fainted when Krishna is about to leave. So why the names of Gandhari and Dhritarashtra is mentioned? I mean, they are not pure devotees. So how is that, they are feeling that much separation? I just...
Well, yeah, they unlike Duryodhan, they are on. They had affection for Krishna. They knew who Krishna was. Dhritarashtra knew that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. Duryodhan, he, even when Krishna showed him the Vishwarupa, he thought he was just ordinary. So there was a big difference, and therefore they're feeling separation. Like I mentioned last time, or the one before that, how Dhritarashtra was actually a great devotee.
Yes, yeah, I remember that. But still, but that was in other lifetime, right? So right now he's still not pure, right? So
yeah, well, he's playing his part where he's genuinely in Maya, like he's doing the wrong things. But yet, I think when Krishna leaves, he realizes that all his sons are dead. I mean, at that point, everybody has a change of heart also, People realize, especially the pious, they realize that, this is, for example, when Krishna comes as death, the pious, immediately before that, they get scared, they're at least fearful, and they want to change. There's a story that, I think Gopal said in his class, how, one of the professors of my oldest son, Radhika,
yeah.
he was a philosophy professor, and he was totally diehard atheist and impersonalist, and he was dying. And so many people went to see him, and my son also, and he told my son that, actually, I'm really afraid now, and I think I want to think about your Krishna, something to that extent, he said. And he was nothing close to being a devotee or anything, in fact, he was an offender. So in this way, what to speak of Dhritarashtra? I mean, many times he almost came at the verge of, not doing those things, not supporting Duryodhan, because he had Vidura also with him to give him counsel. And Vidura, in the end, he did help him, So what I'm saying is that he definitely was not like Duryodhan. So we can see that why he would feel separation. I mean, Krishna, so anybody pious, at heart would feel attracted to Krishna and would feel that, especially having played such a major role in this Leela, So there's internal reasons, external reasons, everything is there. internally he was a great devotee, as we understood, and also externally, the part that he was playing, he would naturally feel, he would feel remorse after seeing all his sons dead. Because Yudhishthira Maharaj, that's the first thing, after hearing from Bhishma Dev, getting nice instructions from Bhishma Dev, the first thing he does, he goes to solace Gandhari and Dhritarashtra. After the funeral ceremony is over, then that's the first thing he does. So we can see, and Gandhari likewise. I mean, she's definitely was a very, she understood. She also knew who Krishna was. In the end, when Krishna tricked Duryodhan, when she asked Duryodhan to come before him naked so that she could open her eyes, and remove the blindfold, and he didn't. Then she could understand, and she knew who Krishna was, and she was actually also a wonderful devotee, a great devotee. In fact, she would give counsel to her husband to desist from doing all those things. So just like Ravan's wife, so many of these wives, they've been shown as very saintly. So Gandhari was similarly very saintly,
Are you done with your presentation?
Yeah, thank you, Mataji. Thank you so much.
Good question.
I'm not seeing any other questions right now.
Okay.
Anybody else have a question? Okay, Kalindi Sundari Mataji, please ask your question.
And ask your question.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. I have a question.
Yeah.
Why did Krishna didn't listen to Kunti? Because Kunti said that please stay here for a little bit, and Krishna didn't listen to her. He just went to Dwarka. But Yudhishthira Maharaj, when he said that please stay here for a little bit, then Krishna heard Yudhishthira Maharaj. So what is the reason of that?
Very, very thoughtful question. Very, very intelligent and thoughtful question. So the way I understood is that Prabhupada mentions how Kunti, even though she's very, very great devotee, and Krishna is a nephew and has great affection for Kunti, yet the affection that he had from the love of Yudhishthira Maharaj towards Krishna was a lot more advanced, was a lot higher and deeper. That's okay. So that's the reason. So we have different grades of devotees, even though all of them are perfect in the perfect in the purpose in which they came. Kunti played her role perfectly, and all these devotees played their role perfectly. But yet there is different levels. Yudhishthira Maharaj is on a much higher platform, a lot higher platform than Queen Kunti. And that's why Krishna could not deny that request of Yudhishthira Maharaj's. In fact, they say that among all the Pandavas, Krishna felt the greatest, love for Yudhishthira Maharaj, because he had to, even though he did a few things that were questionable, like the gambling match and all that, but yet he did it for the reason of, upholding Kshatriya principles. So, okay. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Thank you.
Can you share your name, Veda, and how old you are?
My name is Ujjwal Nitai Das, and I'm 7 years old. So
Wow, he's only 7. That's really young to ask such a deep question. He's very sharp.
Well, thank you, Ujjwal Nitai.
Sorry, he has some neck problem. Therefore, I not clear his voice because He has some suddenly morning today he got neck pain. So
Oh, such a wonderful devotee. Very nice.
And soon I'm going to become 8,
I know. Very soon. Okay.
May, May 10.
Oh, very good. In May. Okay. Happy birthday ahead of time.
Okay, any other questions?
Hi Krishna Mataji, can I ask a question?
Absolutely. Archana Mataji, so nice to join us.
Just one second. I have like 2 phones connected here. I'm gonna pause one. So yeah.
Too much
There was another.
technology, huh?
Yeah. So Mataji, so my question is my daughter, she's like 5 years old, and then like she's never gone to a proper school so far. She only went to a play school, and then like we went to India. We got stuck there for 8 months, and then we came back, and so she's never tasted the real experience. I mean, she has not had the real experience of school, and I'm trying to homeschool her, but for some reason, like she has this very different image of school, like going to school and having lunch with friends and all that. So I have a feeling that she's a very social, extroverted daughter too. So will I be like pre- in a sense, like will I be like depriving her of some experience if I don't send her to school the way she thinks the school is, or should I like send her to school and let her experience and then like see how things go and then like pull her out? I'm just like caught in this anxiety for a while, so I just wanted to check if any of you have had that experience before, of like the child wanting to go to school, but then like we at the same time we don't want to force them to stay home just because like we want to do something else. Just wanted to check on that.
Yeah. Is she your only child?
No, Mataji, I have another younger one. She's going to turn 2. The younger one is going to turn 2.
And she is 4, right?
The elder one is 5 and the younger one is going to be 2. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's only like 3 years difference. Yeah. So they generally play really well together. I know even a year-old difference is not a big difference at all. And they end up playing a lot. So I think it's just, the social aspect. The children do need other children to play with. But you don't have to deprive her of, social interaction. It's just this time is so difficult, the pandemic is become more and more difficult. So children are feeling that a lot. So it's up to you. You can see how things go for you. And I mean, if you feel the need that she should go to school for a couple of years and then you decide it's okay, as long as you keep a very strong Krishna conscious environment at home and, like where she can experience how fun it is, how joyful Krishna consciousness is. So if you feel that pressure, you can try that. But generally, you're very fortunate to have 2 children because then they end up playing. But I'd also like to hear from Sri Radhika what she thinks.
Okay. So I have been inspired by Radha Mataji in my journey of life, and homeschooling, if you ask me, homeschooling creates a world of possibilities for the parent that is homeschooling, whether it's the mom or the dad, and the child, that are beyond the scope of what my belief is any other system of education can provide. So let's identify her need. It seems her need is for social interaction. And let's distinguish it from a strategy. A strategy is, I want to go to school. So the need is a very valid need, but are there other strategies that can meet that need and also meet other needs and not be in conflict with other needs, such as the need for connecting with Krishna, which can be met so much more deeply in a homeschooling environment. The need for a very safe and loving and student-driven learning environment, which can be met beautifully within homeschooling. So can we find other strategies to meet the valid need of social interaction? So I am personally very much entrenched in the homeschooling community wherever I live. So whether it was St. Louis for years or Chicago, it's hard to find devotee homeschoolers. They just don't exist. They're somewhere out there in space somewhere maybe, but I am a big proponent of entrenching yourself in the local community that Krishna has provided. And so I'm part of homeschooling co-op, and my children get to go to a church, every Friday and meet with other children and sit down and have lunch. They also like, oh, I'm going to carry my lunch, I'm going to carry my snacks, I'm going to have a recess break. It's all just social needs. That's all they're expressing. So they have classes all day long at a church, and one mom teaches that, and one mom teaches that, and I teach science, and somebody teaches English, and and then of course I organize play dates with all these families that I get to know through co-op. And then I have this motto, and the motto says, create what you want to see for your child. Don't let the current paradigm inhibit your creativity and your potential to dream of possibilities for your child. So I created Vaishnava Academy, a homeschool co-op. If you volunteer and tell devotees around you, hey, I'm going to do a homeschool co-op for 0 to 5-year-olds or 2 to 5-year-olds every Wednesday, send them to my home from 12 to 4, and we'll do kirtan, and we'll do Krishna games. We'll read from the Bhagavatam. We'll do this book, Bhagavatam for young readers. I'm sorry, there's so much noise. The children are doing Mangal Arati. So if you offer that, I bet, right now we have 7 children, including my 2. And, again, Vaishnava Academy is just a grassroots effort, created that social interaction. So here they are, Wednesdays, Vaishnava Academy, Fridays, this other co-op. And then the rest of the week, whether it's library classes or park district classes, or it's swim team, they need some kind of a physical activity too. So we believe in swimming. All of us are, big into swimming. So being part of a swim team, and they meet children there. And, whether it's, what else? We do so many things, the other thing that we do is part-time public school, so because I'm a taxpayer, the school can refuse for my children to take advantage of their school. So you can approach the public school that you're part of, and you can ask if your children can go just for physical education or the art class, or just for the music class, or maybe even math. And so in that way, they're also getting their social needs met like that. However, at all times, keeping the focus that, we don't want to get so splayed out that the core gets affected. Our morning is very precious, and like till 10 o'clock, our hearing and chanting together as a family is really precious to us. And then the rest of the time, when we're doing academics, having that choice and having that student-driven learning, rather than somebody telling my child, in first grade, you learn about clouds. You don't learn about the soil. But if my child is curious about the soil, let him learn about the soil, So I'm sorry, you got me started on homeschooling, which is my passion. So long story short, I think there are many ways to satisfy social skills in a homeschooling environment.
Thank you, Mataji. This was like, this was just what I wanted.
And if you'd like to connect offline, we can do that.
Sure.
If you go to Vaishnava Academy channel, YouTube channel, you'll find a bunch of videos that we've done over the summer, including with Arula Mataji. And there's one that I've done. It's called Homeschooling 101, where I share my perspective on social skills.
Yes.
So you'd like to hear that.
Yeah. I've actually done all that, and that's why, like, I'm so inspired, but she's not cooperating. So that delta is like so much, Yeah.
Now, one thing I just want to add in that, Radhika, this is Sri Radhika Mataji, this is a beautiful explanation, a good help and support that you are providing at this point. And really, we're all very grateful for that. Now, the other side, the other part also you can do in terms of what she also does, that is opening your home to visits by sannyasis and, and other devotees, for inviting them for kirtan, because we also want to keep that up, besides putting them in these places which they need. Like she said, the strategies to fulfill that need, is diverse. and we can use those strategies. But at the same time, we must balance it with that, like, with the spiritual part, and not ignore that part, because, and that also takes some effort on your part in terms of opening your home, so that when these devotees come to your home, there's a different impact versus always to the temple. They're visitors, but when you invite people, then they are the hosts, and they actually take a big part in serving and getting the association in a very, very deeper way. So all that is very important. And then also exposing them to spiritual activities, where you are reaching out as a family or as a group. You can combine with other families, and you can do programs. I mentioned all those things in my homeschooling book, where you do some school programs, get permission from them. It's so much fun. We used to do quite frequently those things. So the children are also getting that confidence of, they establishing their identity as devotees. They become more convinced of who they are. I know Radhika, Sri Radhika Mataji, she does a yoga program with her husband that exposes the children. So you can do it outside, or you can bring it to your home, but also participate in other programs outside, like school programs, field, like setting up tables, prashadam tables or book tables, going on book distribution with them, going on Harinam with them. Every Wednesday we would go on Harinam downtown with my children. Every Wednesday, I would just, if my husband was busy, we just, three of us would go, and we would chant, and we'd have some books displayed. It was so ecstatic, So these things are very, very valuable to children, because it, solidifies their faith. Okay. So like that you can think. And what to speak of participating in temple activities. Once the temple gets open and everything, in dramas and Sunday schools and in bhakti vrikshas, where you can initiate. In bhakti vriksha, you can initiate programs for the children. I'm a firm believer that bhakti vriksha should be also for, take in mind the children's needs, and have participate in, have separate classes for children over there, and also have them, do plays and skits for the adults there. Like at every moment, they should be engaged in all your activities. Kind of include them into all your spiritual activities as well as in home, in terms of artik, in terms of offering food. All this has to go on. They must be given prominence in your life. Okay.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you. Champaklata Sakhi Mataji from Atlanta. Please ask away.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you so much for giving your wonderful association and wonderful class. We are very, very grateful to you. I have a question, Mataji. We do Bhagavatam on daily basis, but sometimes Garima has different, all of a sudden she wants to do Chaitanya Charitamrita. Then after a few days, then she get tired and she says, okay, I don't want to do it. Then now she's saying, I want to do a little bit of Ramayana. So Ramayana, I have no idea what book to order. Like, if you can give me a little insight, because maybe weekends I can do like a different books for her instead of Bhagavatam on just for weekends. So I just don't know which one to get.
Radhika, do you know? I know one is by Krishna Dharma, really nice one. Yeah, that's a very good book for children. You can do that one. And you want to add anything?
So Krishna Dharma is one that we've read and really enjoyed, and obviously very bona fide. And then Vrinda Shet, she's a second generation devotee. She has two part book on Ramayana. It's really well written. She has such good command over the English language. I found that very beneficial, and I read it with my children. And then Shubha Vilas Prabhu has like this multi-part, I think it's 8-part Ramayana that I also know devotees that I respect a lot, and they read from that Ramayana, and I've read too. I think I've done like 4 or 5 parts with my children, but not beyond that. We got distracted for some reason after that.
So Radhika Mataji, like which one is easier for them to read just by themselves? Sometimes she just wants to be on her own and read books, like her own reading time. Like
I like Vrinda Shet because she has such nice illustrations. Her mom Anna Johannesson, who also works with Kosha Rupa Mataji and does illustrations for, Bharahari Prabhu's wife's books. So I really like their illustrations and the command over the English language. If Garima's up for it, I would recommend that one.
Okay, so Mataji, one more question. So where do we buy it?
I bought it from Krishna.com.
Okay.
But then I bought like all of the Shiva Vilas, and I go to India once a year and I do all my shopping from there.
I know.
So I bought Krishna Dharma and Shiva Vilas Prabhu books from India.
Okay, so but you suggest that the second one is really good, the Vrinda, that one.
For a child to
For the
read,
kids.
because it's illustrated so beautifully. Yeah.
Okay, okay, so I'll
And
look
then
into
there's
it.
one book that my children have read is Ranchor Prime Ramayan. He's a devotee, and it's the illustrations are from B.G. Sharma, and they're beautiful illustrations, and that's very easy for children to read too.
Okay, so that is also on Krishna.com?
That one I bought from the temple, but it's definitely available on Krishna.com. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll look into it. Thank you so much for the help, both of you. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yes,
It's my
so
first
this is
time
not-
here.
Yeah, this is not Kevala Bhakti Prabhu.
No, no.
What is your name?
I'm Brinda Gopi. I'm staying the night here. So then first time listening in with Archana here.
Oh, well, welcome,
Yes.
Mr. Gopi.
Thank you. Thank you. I had a question earlier. When you were mentioning about about your routine a little bit. I have a 2-year-old son, and you mentioned like your morning program is really important to you. And so I was wondering, like, because sometimes I wonder, like, should I wake him up, or like, should I chant in front of him, or should I do my chants before he wakes up? You know, like that kind of thing. And I know as he gets older, it'll be even more important to come together. But just right now, he's 2.5. But I was just wondering some advice, on like morning program, because I would like to start implementing that more and more. We do RT and stuff at a later time, so like our morning time is not really like set to, like for him to be so involved. It's like my husband and I like chanting a little bit, but how to get him started on like kind of being a part of that. Or what do you mean by your morning ritual? How you were kind of expressing how it's very important and like intimate time together.
Arudha Mataji, you're the expert, please.
Well, you have more current experience right now, but I for a 2-year-old, I think you can take your time to do your own sadhana at this time and just wake him up later, because
Okay.
he's so young and he needs his sleep, and you need your own sadhana.
Yes.
So just let him sleep for now, and then as they get older, and they are they are more like, if you did wake them up when they're older, yes, then you can do your sadhana as well, because they're older and they can engage themselves, right? You can engage at that time, so it doesn't disturb your sadhana when they wake up, because they're older.
It's important for them to see us, right? Like sometimes I wonder, like if I'm chanting in front of him, he'll think, oh, I'm ignoring, because he's the only child right now. He wants all the attention, and then at the other end, I don't want to like him to never see me chanting, and then grow up and be like, well, yeah, I never saw you chanting. So it's kind of, I just wondered what was,
It's important that they get their sleep, so that if you're waking them up, you must put them to bed early, so they are not.
Yes. Yes.
Did you want to add anything, Shri Radhika? Please.
Thank you.
Yeah, like Mataji said, we work with the child's body, and I've noticed with my two now, they're 10 and 7. It's okay. Children's noise is very much welcome. And this is your son's name is
Damodar Chaitanya.
Damodar Chaitanya. Haribol.
Hello.
Okay, so I've noticed that Krishna has designed the system such that the body automatically adjusts to less monastic, then so I would just work with his body. And I have personally not woken up my children when they were younger.
Okay. Yeah.
And, you know, especially when they're younger, because there is not really any academic pressure, there is plenty of time the rest of the day, even after they were woken up, to perhaps chant some extra rounds with them, or, you know, do lots of devotional activities. I mean, that's really all we did. You know, there was no academic, you know, like right now we're working on 5th grade math and, you know, 4th grade English, and there wasn't any of that. And the whole day was quite filled with, you know, devotional activities.
Yeah.
So I don't see the need to wake him up. And personally, what I followed, the philosophy was, once they woke up, then we had the morning program, and there was no set time. But it was interesting, you know, Krishna's system is such that naturally then his or their cycle gets used to waking up earlier, and, you know, there's more consistency, and now, you know, just on their own, you know, they see that our life is, we're trying to dedicate our lives to Krishna. And I'm a big fan of Urmila Mataji and Bir Krishna Maharaj. And, you know, the philosophy that I've understood from them, especially Bir Krishna Maharaj, in terms of chanting and devotional activities for the child, is absolutely no force, right? So it's, I mean, I've never once mentioned to my children, you should chant, you know, because you know, Bir Krishna Maharaj says it comes from the heart or it doesn't come, you know, and the need for autonomy is so strong in a child and an adult that if the parent says you should chant, they might do it externally, but it's not coming from a place of devotion.
Right.
But, you know, my son on his own puts his alarm for 6:30 on weekdays and 7:30 on weekends, wakes up and chants 10 rounds without me ever having mentioned to him, you should chant, you know. So I believe in Krishna's system that, you know, and Krishna somehow inspires them when they notice that we are happy in our devotional life. I don't think my children saw me chanting when they were younger. Chanted a round together after Mangal Arati. But that was my extra round. That was my 17th round. But now, because Gopinath wakes up at 6:30, you know, I chant till 7:15. So now he sees me chanting for a few minutes. But Jiva wakes up at 7:15, and, you know, I don't think he sees me chanting, but he understands. And on his own, again, he chose to chant one round every day, so he chants one round every day.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Nice point to remember is that we don't want to be chanting while they're not doing anything and they're bored, you know, because then it gives them negative messages that, you know, that parents are chanting, but, you know, so it's something, it takes away their time with the parents. So like Radhika Mataji is saying, that we want to be careful about that. And get their first sleep. You know, the rulers, Prabhupada insisted that they get up, but then they have a whole system going where as soon as the Mangal Arati is finished, there's a teachers over there to take care of them and them to engagement. So unless you have things like, you know, where the child is not feeling left out, you know.
Right. Yeah.
And develops negative feelings towards chanting. That's really
yeah. Thank you so much to both of you. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for joining us and for your thoughtful questions. Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions at this point. So Mataji, anything in closing?
No, not anything in particular, but thank you all for being active participants today, and we will see you next time with chapter 11. Thank you. Hare Krishna.